Mr. Comer, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, I'm so glad to see that you are now the Agriculture Secretary, and everything I've read about you was excellent, and just hearing your testimony is really reassuring to me. I've always said I think it should be a prerequisite that the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture should have a farm background. I know you have an excellent track record in farming and agribusiness, and I'm looking very forward to working with you. I represent 35 counties in Kentucky, 35 rural counties, and there are 6 congressional districts in Kentucky. But when you look at the total agriculture sales in Kentucky, the overwhelming majority of those sales come from the 1st Congressional District of Kentucky. We have poultry, we have beef cattle, corn, wheat, horses, and a lot of tobacco. Tobacco is still a very important crop in Kentucky. My question is, in many instances, the previous administration promulgated regs that were unachievable. For example, the FDA pushed forward a proposed rule at the very last minute that would limit NNN, I'm going to say nitrosonor-nicotine, in smokeless tobacco to levels lower than growers could achieve. Will you commit to use sound scientific data in rulemaking and work with farmers and ranchers in drafting regulations to ensure that they are realistic and practical?
I will, Congressman. I think, again, my mantra has been sound science, fact-based, data-driven, customer-focused decisions, and that's what we hope to do. That's a balance, obviously. As you know today, we've used science in a way that sometimes comes from an ideological perspective.
Right.
And we've got a sound science definition is in the eye of the beholder. So we've got to make sure at USDA we have an agendaless investigation and things that come out without a predetermined conclusion over our scientific discovery that help us lead. I'm not smart enough to create intuitively programs and policies without data, without science, without facts to do that. So I agree with you. The other part about that, when you talked about the agency that promulgated that, Dr. Tom Price and I, Secretary Price and I, served in the state Senate. We've already talked about some interagency working between delineating FDA's role and USDA's role in some of these areas. The good news about the President's interagency task force over rural prosperity was we get to talk about with different people how your rules affect my people and how my rules may affect your people in that regard. So we want to collaborate in a holistic approach to government, I think like I've not seen before. That's the Secretary of Interior, FDA, HHS, Commerce, and Energy, and those working together. The EPA administrator, I told Scott Pruitt, I said, I think my guys are much more excited about you than they are me. So those kind of folks,
we like you both.
Interagency.
Well, that's very reassuring, and I appreciate that, and again, look forward to working with you on that. Back on that, the FDA's proposed rule on NNN invites the USDA, pursuant to the Tobacco Control Act, to submit an economic impact statement on growers for the record. Does the USDA intend to submit such a report?
If that's what the requirement is on this rule, again, I'm not knowledgeable specifically about that. We'll get you the specifics on it. But if that's what we're asked to do, our economists certainly will talk about the impact of that rule. And that's where we need to look at risk rewards on here, irrespective of how we feel about tobacco. My father convinced me it was unhealthy when I was in the 6th grade, but nonetheless, we know it's an industry and it's important to your district.
Very well, and thank you. One quick question. When I'm back in Kentucky, one question that always comes up in talking with ag groups is, when will we have a state FSA director? Do you have any idea of a timeline for the nomination of state FSA directors?
I'd love to say as soon as possible. Obviously, we are collating and collecting all those names now.
Right.
You all have an awesome role in helping to recommend who those people are, because you know your people in your state better than we do. And as we start to roll those out as soon as possible, we understand those state offices and rural development and the FSA, we need those as quickly as possible. And we'll commit to doing it as expeditiously as we possibly can.
Great. And I'll close with this. And you don't have to reply to this, my time's about out, but when I was the Kentucky Ag Commissioner, we had 2 new crops come online in Kentucky because we had processors. We had canola, which you're familiar with, and another one which you may not be as familiar with, industrial hemp. After the last Farm Bill, Kentucky implemented an industrial hemp program that has been a great success, and I'm looking forward to working with the House to advance policies that continue to grow on that and bring industrial hemp forward as a legal, viable commodity. I'm working with Senator McConnell on that. I look forward to working with you and the USDA to find a reasonable, responsible path forward for industrial hemp to give our farmers another tool in the toolbox. And I just wanted to throw
Both of your senators have made sure I knew about the
Right.
industrial hemp, and we just got to figure out the policies of how that's corralled in a way it doesn't get abused.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Jim,